Sure.
Oh.
Welcome to our second episode of a six-part series in how to double energy efficiency improvements in Europe by 2030. The series, called Energy Fast, is a collaboration between We Don't Have Time, the European Commission, including its Energy Directorate, and the City Network, the Global Covenant of Mayors. How we heat our buildings. Do we use fossil fuels or do we use electricity from renewables? Do we waste heat or do we fit heat recycling heat pumps and so on? So how we heat our building is going to in many ways define Europe's progress on meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. There's good news. According to a new report published in advance of COP30 by the European Environment Agency, greenhouse gas emissions in the European Union have fallen by close to 40% since 2005. And it believes, does the European Environment Agency, if this trend continues, that there will be even better results and maybe there's a chance of hitting net zero. Who knows? But there is another reality which is emerging, not just the need to heat buildings, but cool them, as temperatures and extreme temperatures rise. So if you live in France or you live in Spain, you know that August this year was sweltering. And indeed, Europe is said to be now the fastest warming continent in the world. Yet, only around 20% of European buildings have cooling systems. So with all the good work on cleaner, energy-efficient heating, could it be all overwhelmed by massive installation of inefficient, highly polluting air conditioning? Who knows? So what do we do as city leaders in Europe? And what do we do across the globe? To deal with these questions about heating and cooling, we have in the studio here in Belém, Mirey, Atallah, fantastic, Chief of the Adaptation and Resilience Branch of the United Nations Environment Programme, who among her many jobs today is representing the Cool Coalition. And we also have Eric Piolle, who is mayor of the city of Grenoble in France, who can tell us how his city is handling both heat and cooling challenges in terms of an alpine city in Europe that actually hosted the Winter Olympics in 1968. I remember it well because I was 10 years old and I was glued to the TV set watching what was happening in Grenoble. On Zoom, we have, on the magic of Zoom, should I say, we have Florian Bonert, who is co-founder and CEO of ShiftUp, and Diana Pretzell, the deputy mayor of the city of Mannheim in Germany. Hello, she's waving to us, that's good. And Waltraud Schmid, Authorised Officer and Head of Energy Department at the Urban Innovation Vienna. So let's go to you, Ruth. I say Ruth because it was going to be Ruth before, wasn't it? My God, nobody changed the script. Mirey, okay, talk to us. The Cool Coalition, what is it? And why is the demand for cooling just going through the roof at the moment?
Thank you very much and pleasure to be here.
Well, essentially, the Cool Coalition brings together a number of countries, international organizations, private sector entities, acknowledging the fact that among the 6 sectors that are identified as the key sectors that generate the highest greenhouse gas emissions, cooling is not one of them. Buildings are, construction is, cooling is not, yet. We have witnessed in the past 2 years have been the hottest years on record, as reported by the European agency. And there's also an increasing demand in terms of cooling all across the globe. And I think Grenoble is a fantastic example because it's one of those places where there will be temperature extremes, both in terms of heat and cold.
Really?
So a city like Grenoble is going to have to deal with things like more cooling, but also heating, to continue to heat while at the same time starting to cool.
Yeah.
And what the Cool Coalition aims to do, first of all, is to draw attention on the issue of cooling and extreme heat being one of the deadliest climate impacts. Extreme heat. Well, it's not. There's not a lot of places around the world where heat is reported as being a cause of death, but it is one of the primary causes of death around the world. In particular, we've seen this with several consecutive canicules in France, in Italy, and Greece, and so on and so forth. And so, what we aim to do is not only to draw attention on the issue. It's not just an advocacy or campaign approach. It's mostly also unpacking what practical examples are and how we can beat the heat, which is our new implementation drive that was launched yesterday with the COP30 presidency, has currently 200 cities signed up to it. I hope that Vienna, Grenoble, and others around here will be joining us as well. And it's again a partnership of cities, states, and private sector looking at how to address extreme heat and heat island effect in cities. And we unpack it in very concrete terms. And I'm happy to get back to that a little bit later if you wish.
That's good. That's a good introduction. And the Cool Coalition has been around for what, 3 years, 4 years, something like that?
It was launched at COP28 in Dubai.
COP28 in Dubai.
So
yeah.
It's been on for 2 years. And one of our key star products is a biannual report that is called the Global Cooling Watch.
Yep.
And we just released the one the first one was issued at COP28, second one was issued now.
Super, thank you very much indeed. I want to say that this series, we're doing a series here on energy efficiency, looking through the lens of obviously issues like heating and cooling with the European Commission and the Global Covenant of Mayors, and also having a look at some of the exciting projects that are happening in Europe under programs such as Horizon and the LIFE projects. So it's really good to have you here, Eric, because you're in a city, in Grenoble, you're a mayor, and you have to make some of these tough decisions. Tell us a little bit, Eric, about the situation in Grenoble in terms of the heating and the cooling, and how are you coming to grips with, in a sense, reducing your emissions and bringing in sustainability to these two challenges?
So actually there is two building challenges, the one which is for housing and the public buildings or collective buildings, which needs to be tackled in different ways, because obviously the challenge for housing is much bigger. First, because the challenge is with already built buildings, so it was not planned for neither collective heating or cooling, and so the big challenge is there. What we try to do is to offer, particularly for the cooling side, solution which is not maybe for the former built houses or collective houses, but more planning refuges for the people in collective public building. And so in terms of heating and cooling, clearly the need for heating is reducing. I arrived in Grenoble in '93. And at that time, there was still snow during several weeks in winter time in the city. It doesn't happen anymore at all. And on the other side, we used to have 3 days of canicule heating waves per year in average for the last 2 decades. And now scientists tell us that we'll have around 43 days in 2050. So here there is a clear ramp up for the need for cooling, and that's really where we need to develop strategies to avoid or to reduce, I would say, the installation of personal cooling system that will increase electricity consumption. So that's the framework about the needs, but that's where as well we need to plan challenging the needs themselves, working on efficiency for the solution for the needs, and energy mix. So we need to work on the three area to make sure that we reduce gas emission, but as well reduce consumption and costs of this consumption, and inequality, social inequality facing these heating waves and the need for cooling, as well as challenging this consumerism that is eating our life, clearly.
So I suppose if your challenge is shifting, moving from the heating challenge more to the cooling challenge, one needs to have the latest cooling systems that are less polluting than the older ones, but then they're more expensive, yeah? So is that part of the story?
At the present time, I think when we build new schools, for instance, or kindergarten, we deal with that quite efficiently now to plan for both winter and summertime. When we refurbish buildings, which is our main goal, because what we need to deal with already built buildings, there we still have challenges, so we have targets. But the quality of life after refurbishing is still, I would say, not always perfect. So between what has been targeted and the life experience afterwards. And in terms of the gas emission and costs, we planned when we arrived in 2014 for exiting the gas. So now it's almost done, and it was done just before the Ukrainian crisis war. And on the other side, we implement now PV electricity
solar power
that will cover something like 15% of our needs by 2030, and we have heating collective systems that is already 80% with purely renewable energy, so which is quite efficient. And that's the second largest in France, so it's a good solution. But we still face challenges clearly to expand this network.
Okay, we'll come back to Eric, and let me now turn to Diana Pretzell, in the deputy mayor in the city of Mannheim. And is that Mannheim behind you right now? It looks like Mannheim. It looks quite cute, actually. So in the evening, I think we want to go and have a beer there, actually. Diana, every city in Europe and across the world will have similar challenges and opportunities for acting on climate change. And yet every city is a bit unique as well, with its own circumstances. Can you tell the audience about the actions that Mannheim is taking on heating to cut climate-related emissions? I understand by heat pumps as well, maybe bringing water out of the river, but I don't know. You tell us.
Yes, hello from Mannheim, but this is not Mannheim, what you see. This should be Belém. But however, I would love to drink a beer with you, and it's great that you're there and hold the flag up for the cities in Belém. Thank you for that. But what is Mannheim doing? That's your question. We are on our track for a long time already. We have a local Green Deal team in Mannheim, and we have a climate action plan. Do you hear me? You don't hear me at all? others hear me in the.
I can hear you. Just carry on. Yeah.
Okay,
carry on.
great. I will carry on. So we are one of the 100 climate neutral cities from the European Union. So we are one of the model cities. And we have a climate action plan with more than 300 actions to bring into the city and make people doing the transition together with us, because we are very clear that we are not able to do that alone. Yeah, so this is very important for us. For that, we have a local Green Deal team, a team that is working together with the people from the city, with the citizens, but also with the people working in the city, bringing things on the ground. And we already collected also from our companies, because we are an industry city. We collected altogether more than 250 deals already. So people are into the transition. That is, to me, very important, but especially you are asking for the heat transition. We are into that already, and I think we are one of the first cities in Germany, because we are right into this transition already. And this makes more than 40% of our CO2 path towards climate neutrality. So what do we do? First of all, we have one gift. We have geothermal energy in about 3 kilometers under Mannheim. So this is what we want to use. And we are about to find the place now where this will be in Mannheim, and where we can get out this energy out of the ground. Moreover, we have a heating plan, so everybody knows already when a transition will take place in every single household. Yeah, and we have a system where the warmth is coming to, at the moment, more than 60% of the households. In about 2030, it will be even 75%. So we have already district heating that is helping us so much. And there, what you said is our plug pump. So we have 2 rivers in Mannheim. Not as big as the one you see here, because this is the Amazonas, I guess. But it's the River Rhine, which is still one of the biggest in Europe. And this helps us to bring from out of the heat of the river, we get heat out and use this for heating of the city. So this works for us, and we built it, the second biggest pump about 4 years ago, and now we are building the biggest one, which is 10 times bigger than the one we have already. So we are really into bringing this into action, and I'm really, really happy because our local energy provider is on this track together with the city and brings this climate action into the world. And we are, of course, with 51% part of this as a city. And we give this to the people. We give through a one-stop shop. Everybody can be informed about it. And there are more than 2,000 people per year that get this information from our climate action agency. And moreover, the hand workers, the workers in the city are getting through have a heat transition academy, which is the first in Germany, and they learn how to do this. And they learn how to sell this as well, because they need to receive money with it. And moreover, they earn through this program more than about 30 million euros per year. So the way we are working with them is really efficient, also for everybody in the city. It brings really money into the city.
Right. That's really good. Yeah, just to say that for our audience here, maybe you're not hearing it as clearly, but the audience out there is, so it's okay. So bear with us. It's a bit like acting, you know, the show must go on, you know. Well done. I heard you very nicely there. Dinah, stay with us. as I mentioned before, part of this series with mayors and with experts is to also showcase these Horizon and Life environment programs. There are so many out there. I don't know how anybody keeps track of them, but they all look really fascinating, some of them. And they have acronyms which somebody deserves a Nobel Prize for creating, because they're so unusual in the way that they've been structured. But these are some of the cutting edge, I don't know, test beds for new ideas on energy efficiency. And presumably, if they work well, then they can be scaled up across Europe and make a big difference financially, technologically, and in all kinds of other ways. So, Waltraud, you're coming in from wonderful Vienna, although your backdrop looks like Belém, so maybe you're just down the road. And you've been involved in a live project called Decarb City Pipes 2050, which has just recently ended. It happened in Vienna and some other cities, you can mention them. But what was the problem that this live project was trying to solve? And has it solved it?
Yeah, it did solve it. The answer is yes, it did solve it for the cities involved, because it comes in on what Diana before mentioned on the heat planning, heating and cooling planning. It was that we in Vienna, we were stuck and we said, we need something, we need proper planning there. In fact, we started in 2000 with the whole project, so it took a bit of time. And we collected and gathered a few other cities, like from Bratislava next to us in Slovakia, but also Dublin in Ireland, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands, Bilbao in Spain, and Munich in Germany. And Winterthur as the leader, because actually Switzerland is much ahead in the heat transition, and together actually the point was we learn together, we build up skills together, and we came up with heat maps like it was described before from Diana, and also with transition action plans on how this. How they actually should be then implemented. And let me just say one word why heat is so much more of a local issue than when we talk about electricity transition. Because heat, we in cities, when they are dense, you have an issue of, or you often have central systems. You have central systems in the buildings, but also central pipes. And this is why we looked at the decarbonization of city pipes. And that's where the planning comes into place, where it's not just because if you want to replace a fossil gas pipe in a street by a district heating one, then this means digging, this means city planning, and it's not just something where everybody can do as he or she likes. And the other thing is that heat is also, like also Diana said before, a local source, can use local sources like geothermal. And so it's much more a planning that needs to be done really for fully tailor-made for each city, based on what the city has as local resources, and based what the technologies are to decarbonize, and that's what makes it so different to the decarbonization of the electricity grid. And it's our part was just to do the proper planning, and this means to show what you have where in the city. And what also means like where would be the parts where a renewable district heating would come, like Grenoble already mostly did apparently, but other cities are by far not there. Bilbao, for example, only started with district heating, had no district heating at all, and you need to find and to declare which technologies go where, or which solutions, centralized solutions versus decentralized solutions. And that's what is done with the heat planning, which is then gives also the clarity, as Diana just mentioned before, to the people if it's really mandatory, which it is not in many situations. That's German specific situation, or Netherlands as well, but not many countries do have this. Then you know exactly what will come there at what time, and that allows you to plan. And that's the planning security we need for both sides, for all sides actually involved, for the infrastructure provider, for the people who need to prepare their buildings for it, and also for all these professionals who need to do the job. And this is what our where we came up with through the different cities we have who did all the same steps. We came up with a methodology which is quite sound to be replicated by other cities, and that comes back to what you said is a solution. And actually, cities like Milano afterwards also already used this methodology to get going.
So Waltraud, tell us, I mean, in Vienna, you've got some really high targets, right, to actually hit. Do you think you can hit them better now that you've done this, in a sense, mapping of your resources?
It's the basis for doing, and we actually not as ambitious as Mannheim, because we are not among the 100 climate neutral cities. We have only 2040 as our target. Because 2030, we were sure from the very beginning that we won't make it. But 2040 is equally hard to achieve. It's clear. But the more important is to get the dynamics going, and to get because we see where in all the situations where it converges from framework conditions to actions to skills. Then we have a chance to get in this exponential growth actually. And for that,
Question,
get the thing going.
yeah, the question is though, is we can't all be like Mannheim, but you know, the question is, has what you've done under this live project, you know, given you a greater opportunity to actually exceed or at least meet your ambitions? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's out of this came a heat plan, a published heat plan, which is not as tough as the or as enforced as the Mannheim one, but which gives already the orientation we needed, definitely.
Okay, good. Right, let's come now through to our last guest, last but not last. Florian, you and your team, you're part of another European Life program project called Street HP Renault. I mean, when I heard that straight away, I thought, is that something to do with Renault cars? No, it's not. And it's not even to do with Reno, which is somewhere in, I think, the United States. So it's another. I don't know who writes these acronyms, but they're really good fun to say. It's testing new ideas on how to fast forward the installation of heat pumps in homes by leveraging the collective bargaining power of entire streets. So, Florian, tell us, what did Street HP Renault set out to do, and what has been the results so far?
Yes, sure. And first of all, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this exciting project here. Street HP Renault, as you said, HP stands for heat pumps, and Renault is for renovation. So what the project aims at is for making heat pumps more really accepted and also accessible for homeowners. And you know how it is when there is one neighbor in the street who installed a new system, the other neighbors, they start peeking over the fence because they're curious. And we are basically trying to speed up that process a little as part of our project. And thereby we help move whole municipalities to switch to cleaner heating together. And maybe to put that a bit into context, again, I think maybe numbers were mentioned earlier, but in the EU, 78% of all the energy consumed by a household is used for heating and for warm water. So that's really a huge amount. So of course we need to move away from fossil fuels to heat our homes. However, in many regions, maybe unlike Mannheim, there will not be these big district heating networks that could solve the problem for homeowners. And also, at the same time, switching to a heat pump as a more efficient and decentralized solution, it still feels very complicated and yeah, it feels very risky also to a lot of people. And there's also a lot of misinformation out there, actually. And that makes people feel very worried about switching to a heat pump because they worry if it works in their old house or if it's actually getting more expensive rather than cheaper. And that's really where our project Street HP Reno comes in. Because as you mentioned, we want to make these large-scale rollouts of heat pumps possible through local collective action as a group. So for this, we educate people, we create trust, and we move faster together towards the adoption of heat pumps in a municipality. And in order to do this, we have 14 partners from Germany, France, and Italy working on this project, and also some international organizations such as the European Heat Pump Association and the Energiesprong Global Alliance. And together we have 7 pilots ongoing in cities. And we as ShiftUp, we are leading the German pilot projects in cities such as Neustraubling, which is in Bavaria. There is Wörstadt, and there's also the biggest city involved is Munich. And in those projects, things are moving ahead quite nicely.
So tell me and tell the audience. So if you can, instead of one household buying a heat pump in Munich, for example, and you get like 50 households in 3 streets to buy a heat pump and be part of this, how much cheaper could the heat pump be?
Yeah,
do you know?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Of course, it can't be answered that easily, actually, because there are a lot of factors that play a role here, and also it's going to be quite country specific. In Germany, heat pumps are actually really very expensive when comparing it to neighboring countries. And also you're going to have quite the difference in terms of like the size of the installer that would be involved in a project. You have to imagine if you have a really large installer that would be involved in the project, they're buying already a huge amount of heat pumps, maybe, you know, so the margins that they would get in terms of better prices from the purchasing of heat pumps are relatively small compared to a smaller installer that is buying less heat pumps. But even more important for installers is actually also the fact that you really have these like localized groups of customers. So when you're installing heat pumps, you also create more efficiencies because you can go and do these on-site visits all in the same municipality, one after another. And also when you're then installing, you're creating efficiencies because you can go house by house. And that's actually the point. House by house, yes, but actually going wider than that. And that's where the name also of the project comes from, going street by street and actually even city by city, because the key here is really that the homeowners are not the ones who need to then organize everything and be sort of like lost in this situation on their own. But what we really want to do is help them to organize the switch for a whole municipality or a whole district. And
that's a good point. I think that's a good point because people are nervous about installing heat pumps. But if you've got lots of nice people coming around the street saying, check these heat pumps out, we'll look after you, don't worry about it, then people might go, okay, let's have a go. Yeah. I mean, it's about getting over the anxiety as much as the cost. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what the whole group is about. So I think, you know, we could.
Just hold it there, Florian. Just hold it. We'll try and bring everybody back in now because we've just got 13 minutes. Let's come back to our 2 guests in the studio who have listened very patiently to some very interesting presentations. And Eric, I mean, is it important that cities collaborate with each other on these things? Because some places are doing things which are special. You're probably doing some special things. How do we actually fast forward the connections between cities so that what you do and achieve, you know, can happen somewhere else much faster than maybe it does?
So overall, the purpose for us is to share best practice, and so we do so in terms of network, like ICLEI, for instance. So it's local governments for environmental initiatives, but we want as well to be part of the negotiation. So that's why we're here this time, is to voice clearly the fact that multi-level and subnational negotiations are key, and so we're part of the initiative CHAMP, which is for high ambitions and multi-level and multi-partner negotiation. The fact is, at local level, it's much more. There is much more consensus on what needs to be done, because it protects inhabitants and it brings return on investment as well. In Grenoble now, in the last 10 years, we reduce our energy consumption by 40% and the emission by 70%, so changing the mix. So it's a gain clearly for the city itself, municipality itself. And so within our network, we want to be part of the negotiation, because we say that funding local level and local communities will help to speed up the energy transition, and to do this with less social inequalities, so reducing social inequalities, which is our purpose. So that's what we do, and so we do this through various networks on energy, but as well on food and mobility and on health. So health is very good, because we connect the energy consumption with local pollution, and so the return there becomes local and not only for worldwide contribution, because at local level people say, okay, we are not at the right scale, we are too small to help. Yeah. And so when we bring them a return, local return, then they say, okay, it's where I want to be part of the worldwide movement, and it brings something to me, so it becomes easier for us to move.
That's, Mirey, looking at the Cool Coalition, do you find that people are now coming to you from cities and saying, how do we cool? What should we do? What's the priorities? I mean, is this increasingly a question that's being asked?
Yes, very much so. And it actually connects very much to the Bid de Heat Mutirão, the implementation drive that was launched together with the COP30 presidency a couple of weeks ago. And in a couple of weeks, we have roughly 200 cities that have signed up to it, not only to receive experiences on the how-to, but also to share their own experiences. And there's a toolkit, and part of that toolkit is, I think it was Waltraud that mentioned the heat maps. You start with a heat mapping to know where you need to target your investments. What are your most vulnerable communities? Is it schools? Is it hospitals? Where is it, you know? And then the second step is to work on a heat action plan. And I would like to convey the message that the first objective of efficiency is to suppress the need for cooling. And you suppress the need for cooling by thermal insulation, by retrofitting, by increasing nature-based solutions in cities. One of our partners, Grenoble Foundation, was just sharing that by increasing nature coverage and canopy coverage in cities, there's a temperature differential of roughly 10 degrees that happens. And it's like when you get your weather forecast to look at the temperature and the real feel. And the real feel in cities that have invested in green and blue infrastructure is much, much lower under cases or occurrences of extreme heat and heat island effect, and they're much less subject to heat island effect. And lastly, it's that further step of doing efficient cooling with efficient cooling appliances, with district cooling, as Diane was mentioning, and really looking at an assemblage and a multiple layers of solutions that are fit for for specific circumstances as well. And I would like to maybe a shout out for women.
Yes, quick shout out then.
Because there's different needs for different communities, vulnerable or different communities. But really, I think Diane, Waltraud, and myself are part of the women that are suffering from hot flashes. And there are ways, and it's really important to think about who are the communities that you're targeting and what are their needs. Because, for example, across the cities that we work with, for example, in Dakar, it's a different temperature level, right? So it's at 42 degrees that extreme heat or a heat wave is declared in Dakar, at 28 in Glasgow. So it's very, very circumstance and context related. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind and in consideration. Yeah. There's a feel of heat that is also different than the recorded temperatures.
And I know this for a fact because I like going to Crete in Grecian land, in Greece on holiday with my girlfriend. She is German. And she collapses at like 37 degrees or 35, whereas I love it, right? So everybody's different. You know, your physiologies are all different. It's a very important point you raised there. We will actually have a live or maybe Horizon project on the show tomorrow, or maybe it's the day afterwards, which is looking at passive cooling in Spain, and we shouldn't underestimate this, should we? I mean, let me come back to Mannheim. I understand that you are the hottest city in Germany. Is that correct, or?
Absolutely, we are, and but we also have the first heat action plan in Germany, and we really try to bring this into action with a lot of green in the city, and of course, also people have to look for each other. There's so much need that you need to see when old people have a problem, then the neighbors should help, also with the very young ones. And for all of them we have programs, and but also a program of solidarity. But I would like to add some political messages, if I'm allowed.
A political message. Okay, let's have it.
Yeah, thank you. Because we have to work together. You said this before, the cities, yeah? And we had some cities here visiting us, etc. We are a model for the climate action plan, for the whole European Union, or for monitoring. But this helps, but it only helps if we get funding and if we get the structure that we need. And for that, what do we need? We need to be part of the cities agenda of the European Union, first of all. Second of all, in Europe, we need to have financing through the MFF, and we need to have help by the member states. That's a part of the European Union. And in parts of what we need from the COP, we really need a framework program for the cities, because we have to sit at the table with the others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's where the action takes place. Therefore, we need a United Nations framework covenant on climate change for urbanization. That's the most important. And then, of course, better access to funding. That's the most important that we need. So please, please, please try to bring this into action on this COP. Thank you.
So, I mean, that was clear that we need the right kind of framework with the cities involved, you know, at the table, basically, with the governments when they're making decisions. I thought that had been resolved at COP28 in Dubai, because the cities were going to be taken out of the equation. And then we had Mark Watts of C40 come on our We Don't Have Time show, and the head of ICLEI, whatever, saying it was a disgrace. And then next day, then they were back in the outcome. What's happening, Eric? What are the cities being put in and then taken out, and put in and taken out? What's going on?
I don't know. I think on our side we are pushing still. We heard that the presidency of COP this year in his initial message voiced this, so we hope that it will be back. I think we're making progress there. Maybe from time to time countries are pushing cities out to focus on their discussions. I don't know, but I think a way to progress would be really to have this, and to have the cities around the table, and maybe there is some differences as well depending on the regions, because there is areas where it is naturally driven. but I would say in the last number, very high number of countries, it is locally driven. So I think there is now in the CHAMP arena, there is 73 countries that join the initiatives to have multi-level negotiations. So that's where we would like to go and to find a way to integrate this in the UNFCCC so that it can cope with areas where countries doesn't want to have this because of their national organizations.
Well, we'll have to see what happens at the end. But maybe it's because cities are actually embarrassing the governments because you've all got higher targets and doing a better job than the state governments, right? Maybe that's the problem. Florian, I'm conscious that we had you last, but Florian, when are you finishing this live project? When does it end, and when will you have the full results?
Well, this project will end in September of 2026. So now we're in the final period, really. We're in the hot period, really, when all of the pilots are also ongoing and the results are coming in. But of course, we aim to continue these efforts. At least from ShiftUp's side, we would love to continue this. And also, we've got a follow-up project called AREC Reno, which would then look into not just heat pumps, but doing this bulk action for all other parts of building renovation as well. And that's also something that then follows exactly right thereafter.
Okay, great work. Thank you very much for featuring it. I want to thank the city of Vienna as well. I'm thanking the energy agency, aren't I, of Vienna, for your great work. And I think you've been to Mannheim just recently as well, haven't you?
Yeah. Yes.
And was that fruitful?
That was very fruitful, and it comes to the point I want to make at the end. Why are these projects also so good? Because several cities together, we actually were also during the time influencing EU legislation. And one of the things we managed to stimulate was what is now the internal market for renewables gas, for natural gas and hydrogen. And in there is now an article for decommissioning planning of gas distribution grids. And that article was stimulated by our projects because the one that goes directly with that is that we abandon the right to connect to natural gas, which is still in the legislations.
And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I should have asked you that question because it's so important. This regulation where cities can get off gas, right?
Yeah, and we need a really fast implementation. It's due to be implemented by the member states by 4th of August next year. But that's really calling also on the Commission to be there tough and make sure that the delays are really very minor.
Okay. Waltraud, thank you so much for picking me up on that and getting that point over. Really excellent. Good luck. Thanks, everybody. We've got to go now. We're just 2 minutes over the timing anyway. Thank you for coping with the tough conditions here in Belém. Great show. And please tune in, if you're a viewer, to Energy Efficiency First on 14 November at the same time as 2 o'clock here in Belém, which is basically 6 o'clock in the wonderful Central European time. And now we go over to friends and partners at the Nature Positive Initiative for the next session. Goodbye, everybody. See you.